Picture this, it's post-war Britain. Rationing is still in effect, the streets are battered, and ordinary families are desperately searching for something better. A reliable car to carry the children, the shopping, and whatever small hope they had left. British manufacturers promised exactly that: gleaming brochures, bold headlines, big dreams wrapped in British steel. But behind those polished promises, some of these cars were hiding serious problems. Bad engines, worse reliability, designs that made you wonder if anyone tested them at all. And the car sitting at number 1? It shocked buyers even in its own era. Stay with us. Number 10, Standard 8. When peace finally returned to Britain in 1945, Standard Motor Company saw their moment. The Standard 8 was pitched as the perfect family runabout, compact, economical, and reassuringly British. Families struggling to rebuild their lives after years of war were told this little car would make everything just a little bit easier. But the Standard 8 had a complicated relationship with the word standard. Its tiny 803cc side-valve engine produced barely 26 horsepower, which sounds inadequate even by 1940s expectations. Load the back seat with 2 children and a suitcase, and the engine protested every single incline. The interior was stripped almost entirely bare, no heater fitted as standard, no carpets, no sense that comfort had ever entered the designers' minds. Build quality swung widely between acceptable and genuinely troubling depending on which exhausted production line built yours. Families bought it because options were scarce and promises were plentiful. But something far worse was quietly waiting further up this list. Number 9, Hillman Minx Phase 1. Just a year after the Standard 8 arrived, the Hillman Minx Phase 1 pulled up with considerably more ambition. Roots Group positioned it as a proper family saloon, something with real dignity, a car that suggested normalcy after wartime misery. On paper, the Minx looked reasonable. A 1185cc side-valve 4-cylinder engine for full seats and bodywork that at least tried to suggest sophistication. But post-war factories were under enormous strain, and the Minx wore every bit of that pressure. Panels that never quite aligned. Doors developing rattles before the first winter was over. The engine, while adequate on smooth roads, became unhappy when carrying a full family load for any distance. Rust arrived quietly and relentlessly, attacking door sills and floors within just a few years. Families expected something dependable and got something that demanded patience instead. Would you have trusted this car with your family on a long journey? And patience, in 1940s Britain, was already running dangerously low. Number 8, Morris 10 Series M. Morris had been making cars before most of its buyers were born, so the Morris 10 Series M of 1945 carried serious expectations. Here was a brand with history, pedigree, and a name that working families trusted completely. And yet the Series M arrived looking every year of its pre-war age. The design was essentially unchanged, as if the conflict had paused not just production but imagination entirely. Under that dated bonnet sat a 1140cc side-valve engine already considered outdated by the mid-40s. Performance was gentle to a fault, overtaking on country roads required either conviction or sheer bravery. The gearbox was notoriously stiff, demanding brute force rather than finesse. Inside, the cabin felt surprisingly cramped, and families with growing teenagers quickly discovered legroom was more of a suggestion. Morris had an enormously loyal following who trusted the badge implicitly. That trust was quietly rewarded with mediocrity. And somehow, the car coming next made the Morris 10 look almost reasonable. Number 7, Lea Francis 14 HP. The Lea Francis 14 HP of 1946 managed something almost impressive. It failed with real ambition. Lea Francis was a Coventry firm built on sporting heritage, and the 14 HP was their attempt to translate racing pedigree into practical family motoring. The intention deserves recognition. A 1767cc twin-cam engine sat under the bonnet, genuinely advanced for 1946 Britain. But advanced and reliable are rarely the same thing, especially when skilled labor was scarce and materials inconsistent. Owners quickly discovered the twin-cam demanded costly, regular attention that most working families simply couldn't afford. Bodywork assembled by outside coach builders varied so wildly between examples that finding matching replacement parts became near impossible. Every car was essentially unique, and not charmingly so. Families expecting elegance found themselves managing something expensive and temperamental instead. The reputation Lea Francis had built over decades evaporated quickly under the weight of owner frustration. Most buyers never saw it coming. And the next car on this list hid its considerable problems even more effectively. Number 6. Triumph 1800. By 1946, standard Triumph was ready to aim higher. The Triumph 1800 wasn't positioned as basic transport, it was something genuinely aspirational. A family saloon with real class for buyers who felt they'd earned something better after the war. It had the looks. A razor-edge body styled by Frank Calabi turned heads wherever it went. Under that elegant shell sat a 1776cc engine derived from standard components not originally designed for this application, which perhaps explains what followed. The suspension, borrowed rather than purpose-built, gave the 1800 a ride that felt uncertain and unpredictable on anything except smooth tarmac. Heating was poor, leaving whole families shivering through British winters in a car that only projected warmth through its styling. Parts availability was unreliable from the start, turning routine repairs into expensive ordeals. The Triumph 1800 looked like everything families had dreamed of. Living with it daily was altogether different. And things were about to get considerably worse further up this list. Number 5. Austin A40 Devon. By 1947, Austin was ready to make a bold statement. The A40 Devon arrived with genuine fanfare, modern styling, real ambition, and the full weight of Austin's considerable reputation behind it. Here was a car designed for the new Britain being carefully rebuilt from wartime wreckage. A 1200cc overhead valve engine delivered 40 horsepower, a meaningful step forward from many contemporaries. For a brief, hopeful moment, the Devon genuinely seemed like the car families had been waiting for. But early production cars carried quiet disappointments. Rust arrived with alarming enthusiasm, particularly around sills and floors where water crept through inadequately sealed seams. The gearbox demanded a deliberate, almost ceremonial technique. Impatient drivers found it flatly refused to cooperate. Dealership support was patchy, meaning repairs dragged on far longer than families could comfortably absorb. The A40 Devon looked confident and progressive. It simply wasn't always convincing when it mattered most. And something considerably worse was still to come further up this list. Number 4. Jowett Javelin. Now here's a car that genuinely deserved better. The Jowett Javelin, launched in 1947 by the Bradford firm that had been building cars for decades, arrived as something truly extraordinary. Its aerodynamic body was years ahead of most British rivals. A flat-4 1486cc engine, torsion bar suspension all-round, and a genuinely roomy interior that felt almost futuristic by 1940s standards, the Javelin looked like Britain's answer to continental sophistication. Motoring journalists were astonished. Early buyers were thrilled. You can probably already guess where this is going. That flat-4 engine developed a persistent and damaging tendency to overheat, particularly on longer journeys or during summer. Big end bearing failures became distressingly common, and Jowett's small workforce struggled badly to produce replacement parts at pace. Frustrated owners formed queues that tested everyone's patience. The Javelin deserved to be remembered as a triumph. Instead, it became a cautionary tale about ambition outrunning production capacity. And the very next entry made even bolder promises. Number 3. Singer SM1500. Singer had been a respected name in British motoring for decades. When the SM1500 arrived in 1948, expectations ran high. A proper four-door saloon with a 1497cc overhead cam engine producing 48 horsepower, and bodywork that suggested someone had actually glanced at continental European design. Singer's marketing leaned hard on that sophisticated engine, and not entirely without justification. But what the brochures didn't mention was what happened when that engine needed attention. Servicing required specialist knowledge most local garages simply didn't have. Finding a competent mechanic in rural England could feel almost impossible. Meanwhile, the bodywork rusted with remarkable conviction. Panel gaps emerged. Doors that had closed cleanly on purchase day began sagging within a few years of family use. Families who trusted Singer's long reputation found themselves repeatedly disappointed by a car that overpromised and consistently underdelivered. What happened next damaged the Singer name badly. And the car next on this list made the SM1500 seem almost dependable by comparison. Number 2, Standard Vanguard Phase 1. And now we reach the final two. The Standard Vanguard of 1948 arrived with extraordinary confidence. Standard Motor Company wanted a car that could conquer not just British roads but export markets worldwide, a single model doing everything for everyone. That ambition is either courageous or foolish, depending entirely on how the car turns out. A 2088cc four-cylinder wetliner engine sat under a bonnet styled with transatlantic inspiration, and the Vanguard looked genuinely modern, almost aggressively so for 1948 Britain. But ambition and execution were uncomfortable companions here. The wetliner engine developed a notorious overheating problem, particularly in the warmer climate Standard had optimistically targeted. Rust attacked the bodywork with unsettling speed. The column gear change felt imprecise and frustrating in daily family driving. For those who had stretched their finances believing they were buying something genuinely progressive, the disappointment ran deep. The Vanguard promised the world and delivered considerably less. And what's coming next is honestly very hard to believe. Number 1, Bond Minicar Mark A. And here it is, the car that earns the top spot almost uncontested. The Bond Minicar Mark A, born in 1949 in a tiny Preston workshop, was sold as personal transport for post-war families on an extremely tight budget. Extraordinary, just not in the way families had hoped. A single-cylinder VS two-stroke motorcycle engine of just 122cc drove a single front wheel. One wheel at the front. No reverse gear whatsoever, maneuvering required physically pushing the vehicle. Bodywork was fiberglass and lightweight alloy, meaning minor impacts caused serious damage. On wet roads or sharp bends, the handling was genuinely alarming. Stability required faith more than engineering. Families with young children traveling inside were taking a very meaningful risk on every journey. The brochure called it economical and practical. Buyers who tried living with it as a real family car found both claims generously applied. This was British motoring ambition at its very most bewildering, and somehow, its most unforgettable moment. And there you have it, 10 cars, 10 stories, one very clear lesson from 1940s Britain. In an era of rationing and damaged factories, car makers dared to dream boldly. Sometimes that courage produced remarkable things. But ambition often ran ahead of what post-war Britain could deliver. And if you enjoyed this journey through the less celebrated corners of British motoring history, like the video and subscribe to Britain Rewind. The road back is always worth traveling.